practices. This is based off your assigned reading. Allington's article on the 6 T's of effective teaching. You don't go crazy. But one of the questions that I heard you guys talking about, you seemed very confused about this idea of text. You're confused at the text section. What are they talking about, easy text or right text or choice? What they're really debating, and this is an ongoing debate, between level text or motivated text. Do you give kids text that they can read with high fluency, accuracy, and comprehension? Do you give them everybody an on-grade level text as suggested in the new Common Core State Standards, or at least by the authors of the Common Core State Standards? Or do you give them a motivating text? And I'll talk about that a little later on in some of my experience as a classroom teacher. But really, we're talking about what does it make to be an effective teacher? What is an effective teacher?
Finally tonight, our persons of the week. What is more important than exciting?
Making kids want to be smarter. Devin Roberts tells us about an expert who thinks he cracked the code of what makes a great teacher. And tonight, some of those teachers show us what a day with them can be.
Boys and girls, the secret is that this is not an ordinary classroom.
If this seems more secret clubhouse than third grade reading class, you just made teacher Justin Melly's day.
What's the smart student attitude?
Excitement is part of the lesson in his Houston classroom.
Legendary.
The same is true in Mariel Elguero's 5th grade class in Newark, New Jersey.
Sometimes my little sister likes to imitate me.
Today, the kids are grasping the word imitate. With their creative teaching styles, both Elguero and Melly have seen their students leap 2, even 3 grade levels in a single year.
These teachers, every time we see these great results, they're setting ambitious goals based on high expectations for their students.
Okay, who can tell me what rhyme is?
Stephen Barr, who recruits and trains top-notch college grads for Teach for America, spent 10 years visiting classrooms all over the country, trying to unravel the mystery of what makes a great teacher. What he found, and is now sharing in a new book, is that superstar teachers need not have outgoing personalities or master's degrees or loads of teaching experience, but they do share a few things in common.
You guys still need tons of help figuring out words that you get stuck on. If you agree, you can show me with your thumb.
Great teachers make certain every student's keeping up.
One of the things that I do here are a lot of checks for understanding that are
Test.
super visual.
Show me with your thumb.
Not your normal test, but just checking for understanding. Are they growing? Is their knowledge gains growing?
New ways to figure out words that we don't know.
Amazing teachers aren't afraid to change their lesson plans.
If I'm teaching something and it's just not flying, then I say to them, my mistake. This isn't working. Let's regroup. Let's try something else.
So you do that in front of
Yeah,
kids.
so they're fine with that. They're used to that.
But this may be the most important discovery of all.
We are all going to get so much smarter.
Great teachers set high goals, as 11-year-old Brianna Randolph has learned from Miss Elguero.
Brianna, what was your reading level when you got here?
It was hard for me to read because I didn't understand the chapter books.
Her mom, Denise, is now amazed at the difference.
When she got here, we learned that Brianna was 2 levels behind. And today, Brianna is actually almost 2.5 levels above where she was when she came in.
And it's only February.
And so we choose Justin Melly and Mariel Elguero on behalf of all the great teachers.
So Allington and his team, they did something similar. They want to know what makes effective literacy teachers. And the first thing they came up with was time. Anybody recall what, from my time group, what was that kind of golden ratio, that magic number for them? 50%. 50% of your instructional time, your student should be either reading and or writing. And how many people were amazed by the idea that in many 90-minute classes, 90 minutes, language arts blocks, 9-0. Only 10 minutes. 10, 1-0. Or 15 minutes. 1-5. That's it. Where kids are actually engaged in reading or writing. Effective teachers have kids always reading and writing. Now, that doesn't mean simply just doing, like standard SSR, where you just have kids staring at the books upside down, pretending to read, or having a copy of Cosmo in the book or something. If your kids are reading Cosmo, you got bigger problems. But it means interactive reading, interactive writing. You're using that instructional time of reading and writing. But that makes logical sense. If you want to be an effective literacy teacher, if you want to use literature, informational text, argumentative text, expository text, you have to have kids reading and writing literature, informational text, expository text, argumentative text. It's like sometimes the most important lessons in life seem to be the most simple, yet they take a while to grasp. But you need to be spending a lot of time having your students read. Text. And this caused a little bit of confusion. There's also this idea that we're evolving. We're in an era where we're moving from print to pixel. And our idea of texts are evolving. But what we do know is that kids need the opportunity, they argue, to read texts that they can comprehend, read fluently, and read accurately. And that goes to a debate on whether text should be leveled. Should kids be given some kind of reading test and say, oh, I'm sorry, you can only pick books from the P shelf or the W shelf? Anybody ever see that in a classroom? This is my personal opinion. I disagree. And if a kid has a text that is hard for them, but motivates them, I'd rather have them struggle through that text. For example, I was a 6th grade teacher. I had a boy very reluctant to read. Struggled with reading, didn't want to do it. I was at a garage sale, hint, the bookstore for every new teacher, and I found a book about the Cannonball Run. I didn't know this. I thought the Cannonball Run was just a movie, but with Don Miller. Anybody ever seen the movie? It's way older than you folks. Great movie. But it's a story about a race from New York to LA and see who can win. I did not know this, but it's a true story. The editors of Car and Driver back in the 70s, they designed this race called the Cannonball Run. It was a real race. And I found this book in a garage sale. Way past the 6th grade reading level. But he ate it up because it was about cars, and he loved cars. Total gearhead at 6th grade. He could rebuild, not that cars have carburetors, but he could probably rebuild one because he worked on older cars. And even though it was above his grade level, it got him into reading. So I tend to sway that you do not need to just read at your fluency level. Read what motivates you. Get kids to love reading. Give them choice. And I like this idea of managed choice. I call it democracy by design. Kids often decide to choose the books that, I work with them to choose. They make the decisions that we need to make together. A lot of times, what I love to do is have classroom sets of texts. So you have maybe 5 copies of different titles. So you could say, oh, who wants to be in the mystery group? Who wants to be in the memoir group? Who wants to be in the history group? And they can all read the same text. So you have a unified text. And that doesn't mean you should have some general classroom texts that are shared, yes. But when you're filling up 50% of 90 minutes with reading and writing, you're going to need lots of text choices. And so choice of text is important. And we also have to address this idea that our concept of text is shifting. We need to give kids access to the kinds of reading materials online. Reading online for information, researching online about topics, takes new online research and media skills that are more complex than traditional reading skills. They involve many of the skill strategies and social practices required from print. but there's additional layers of complexity that need to be taught and that we do not cover yet with our students. The teach. How did Allington define teach? What did he talk about? What did he talk about? Yes, ma'am.
He talked about demonstrating and having, like, watch me do this instead of just assessing and
Yeah, active teaching. Model, model, model. By the time you leave here, you're going to be so sick of me hearing model, model, model. You need to be active in what you do. If you want your kids reading, you need to model what good readers do. You need to talk to them as good readers. You need to model writing. You do this through doing things like think alouds and write alouds and modeling comprehension strategies. And this is all stuff we will learn about this semester. But anything that you want to teach, you need to model to them. They give an example. They cite research. When you give students a worksheet on phonics and all the kids are doing is filling in vowel patterns, only the students who already know that vowel pattern does that worksheet help. But as a teacher, if you had, and we're going to do some activities with this, but if you had activities where you had kids, you showed them how you were taking cup and cap, and you showed them moving out the vowel and bringing a picture over and talking about those sounds. You're modeling what kids do, right? Model, model, model. That's what effective teachers do. Active teaching. You just do not assign, assess, rinse, repeat. No. You have to be engaged with your students. Talk. There are two ways to really improve comprehension. Text-based talk and text-based analysis. In learning how to have effective talk in your task, in your classroom, that drives students back into the text, it requires them to make inferences using information from that text. That is a skill, as future elementary teachers, you must master. You need to think about questioning techniques. You need to think about small group techniques. Modeling, once again, text-based talk. Right? They need to, as Dr. Dickinson calls it, talk through the text. The information needs to come from the text. And I'm telling you, it is probably one of the hardest skills for pre-teachers to master. Because you're tempted to do things like call tech support when kids are doing group work, instead of rotating through the groups and sitting down and modeling with them, or listening to their discussions, or making sure they're staying within the text. Like what often happens is what if you're reading the Giving Tree and you have your groups to discuss it? Little Johnny might be, oh, I have a tree. Oh, we have a tree. Oh, it fell down during Hurricane Sandy. Oh, hurricanes, I have a beach house once, and we had lost a boat, and now they're just gone. They're out of the text. They're just talking about personal examples. And that is good discussion, and there is a place for that in the classroom. I do not deny that. But if you want effective text-based discussion, you need to have your students, you need to model them how to keep it within the text, and how to use evidence from that text, even at the early childhood level. Where do you find that evidence? Picture walks. If you watch a preschool student make meaning with a text, you might point to a word and be like, what do you think? They're scanning the picture, and they'll say something that they see. They're drawing meaning from what's around the words because they can't decode them yet, and that's okay. But picture walks are an effective method, and we'll talk about how we do that in early childhood education settings. The task. What did Allington say about the task? Yes, ma'am.
Was there something about student choice?
Yeah, there was the concept of choice was in there. But mainly, were there a lot of short tasks? No, he talked about the idea that you need ongoing, in-depth tasks that require students to use their new understandings and demonstrate that they've learned. And there is that idea of choice in task too. So notice that effective teachers provide choice in text, and effective teachers provide choice in task. And you can still develop tasks that would check for understandings of your stated learning objective, your student learning objective, your SLO. But you can think of new performance ways to measure that. Often what you do is you start with your student learning objective, then you design a performance task that would measure that objective. Then you think about how you could support them learning to get the knowledge that they would need, the knowledge and skills to complete that task. That's how effective teachers plan.
Can you say that again?
Sure. Often you'll start with your objective. Determine a performance assessment that would check for understanding. Was there knowledge growth on that objective? Did they learn both new knowledge and skills? You want to have some kind of task that would scaffold both the knowledge and the skills. Then you plan your instruction to get them to that point. Backward design, basically, in a very brief 2-minute synopsis. And that connects to that final element, the test. The effective teachers looked for knowledge growth. They just did not measure knowledge. They put emphasis on measuring process as much, or if not more, than measuring product. What do I mean by that? They put more emphasis, according to the studies that were involved in this article, more emphasis in measuring process of a product. Well, that is, you're looking for gains. You're not just, if you give a rubric to writers, and that's it, guess what? Your A writers are going to get an A. Your striving writers are going to get a C. Nothing's going to change. Good writing is good writing. But however, if you work with the students and you identify specific tasks for them that would improve their writing, maybe you struggle with clarity of a thesis statement and your overall organization of your paper. Maybe you struggle with sensory details. Maybe you struggle with transition words. If they each, and then if you look for growth in those 3 areas for those 3 students through conferencing with your students about their writing. And I said, I forget your, well, you just said, you know what, we're going to do a quick little work on our transitions. How can we connect these ideas? This is an argumentative piece. Argumentative writing uses very specific transition words. Good writers who write argumentative pieces use common words over and over again. Let's see how we can do that in your writing. And I'm going to work with you to do that. And then when you hand it in, I can see, did you gain just in that skill? And I can measure you just on that. And look for growth in your process. Instead of just grading a final assignment. That's something that effective literacy teachers do. So those are the 6 T's of effective literacy instruction by Dick Allington and his colleagues. Any questions about those topics? All right.